that was amazing what he did out there tonight. Some of those shots, I don't think anybody in the world can hit those but him. He was incredible.
He gave me and Steph a night off, which is nice. You know, when you got what Coach calls the ultimate luxury.
You know, he's one of the best players that I've ever played against, that this league has ever seen. His ability to handle the ball, shoot the ball, you know, make plays at his length, at his size, at his speed. So there it is.
Don't get me wrong. Every time I make a shot in the NBA, I get excited. I just internalize it a little bit as I get older, a little bit more than I did when I was a younger player. So I was definitely excited. It's hard to make shots at this level in the NBA, and I understand that.
Well, he's now done it 2 years in a row, almost from the same exact spot. Hey there, and welcome to SI Now. Ryan Asselta alongside Robin Lundberg and our SI NBA analyst, John Starks. Guys, Warriors grab a 3-0 series lead behind KD's epic performance in Game 3. John, Durant's greatness on full display last night in Game 3. 43 points. What was so special about what he did on Wednesday night?
He let the game come to him. He really was taking his time. He was patient out there. I could think about a play that he had where he was at the top of the free throw line, where he's at the free throw line, and he just let guys just move, and he just backed them down. He was just in the zone, you know. When you see him like that, 6'11", and you got guys at 6'10" guarding him, and he still get the shot off and shooting it like he has a 5'2" guy on him. It doesn't make a difference when he gets it rolling. And they needed him last night because Steph and Clay obviously wasn't giving it to him. And that third bullet, it's a tough one.
Well, I mean, he's just an unreal scorer, right? Yes. I mean, he hit 4 shots from 30-plus feet away. And I think that's the reason people were so upset about him going to Golden State. No one was fronting on how good this guy is. Everyone realizes how good he is. And the problem is he makes Golden State too good.
Hey, you know, they just a different animal, you know, with him, obviously. If they didn't have 2 years ago, without Durant, Cleveland wins that game by 20, as we all know.
Yeah.
They win that game by 20. But with Durant, those guys can afford to take a night off because he's going to carry them till they get going. Steph was like 1 for whatever before he hit his 3.
He was 3 for 16 in the game.
Yes.
The best description I've seen is Steph Curry raises their ceiling, Durant raises their floor. Now, with that said, did he put himself in the driver's seat for Finals MVP?
I think they neck and neck. I think this is going to be the tiebreaker game.
That's what we're playing for in Game 4?
That's what we're playing for. That's what they're going to like. You know, we're going to have something to play for because this series is pretty much over. Yeah. I think right now they're going to say, what, 30. I'm looking at the numbers now. 31.7, 24.3. 38, 50, man.
Curry brought his field goal percentage down.
I agree. It's going to come down to Game 4. That's what it's going to come down to.
It's going to come down
At least we have something to keep an eye on and try to root for here.
Exactly.
John, LeBron goes for a triple-double, 33, 10, 11, but he was criticized by the pundits for his passiveness in crunch time and not really stepping up, taking control on defense, possibly saying, I'm going to take care of KD. Does he deserve the criticism after a performance like we saw last night?
Well, you're at home, and you expect to win at home. Obviously, Game 1 and 2 was tough losses for them. But when you come home, yes, you expect to win, you know, being Cleveland and you're on your home floor. You have to take over that game in the fourth quarter. You have to do everything that you have been doing leading up to this particular game, and you have to take over. So, yeah, you're the king. You know, you say you're the king, you're going to take the criticism. And so I didn't think he did enough in the fourth quarter and being aggressive on both ends of the court.
But to me, this is the difference between the positions Durant and LeBron are in. The whole team is guarding LeBron. You know, Andre Iguodala's back. He's taking him on the perimeter, and then everybody else is hedging behind. Meanwhile, Durant, a lot of times, is working against George Hill one-on-one in a mismatch or Kevin Love. I mean, Durant was 8 for 22 in Game 1. Curry 3 for 16, as you mentioned last night. LeBron just can't have a game like that.
No, you can't have a game like that. The margin of error is so slim with them that they need for him to play out of this world every single game. But You at home. You have to force the referees to make calls. You have to drive the ball. You have to get on the post. You have to make things happen for your teammates. And I don't think he did enough of that. You know, sometimes Ty Lue have to take the ball out of his hand and get him down on that post and play through him. And I don't think he did enough of that.
Is there almost a double standard? You know, he's criticized for being passive when some of the actual passes he makes are good looks, when his teammates just either fumble the ball, they miss a bunny close to the hoop. Meantime, Steph Curry and Kevin Durant make that same pass, and Andre Iguodala just throws it down and scores the basket. I mean, it's that talent gap that we're talking about, that there's no margin for error
He
at all.
had a 30-plus point triple-double.
And he's being criticized.
Hey, you know, his level of play have to be so much higher than everybody's. And I think that, you know, he considered the best player in the game today. And so you expect to win games at home, on your home court. You know, you go back to the days of Michael Jordan. When he was down, he come home, you knew that they was going to win that game, and he was going to make sure that they win that game, even if he had to explode in the fourth quarter.
But, you know, the Jordan-LeBron thing goes back and forth, right?
Yeah.
The other side of that, isn't it that Jordan had the teammates?
I think LeBron has a good team. I really do. I don't think that they're utilizing the players that they have. Something, and I talked about this earlier, it's a disconnect there for whatever reason. I think those guys are very talented. Rodney Hood is a very talented player. Clarkson is a very talented player. Those guys, Nance Jr. is a very talented player, and Kevin Love is giving them what he's giving them. I think it's a disconnect there, because when they first got to Cleveland, LeBron looked like a kid all over again. He was smiling, jumping around, you know, they was having fun. And all of a sudden, as the playoffs went on, that disconnect started to happen, and it's showing right now to me.
One of those teammates is J.R. Smith, and you mentioned the home court. J.R. said after this game, actually, it was tougher to lose this one. I think this one hurts more because it was at home. Do you buy that?
I agree. You know, of course, they probably could have snuck game one in. You know, obviously the play that J.R. made, we never know if he was going to make the shot or not. You know, if he went back up a timeout, if they're going to win or whatever. But he understands. He's been in the finals with LeBron for, 4 years now? He understands that you have to protect home court. You must protect home court. And they didn't do that last night. And so, you know, it's going to be tough.
It hurts because it's 3-0.
Yes.
But let's make no secret here. Game one changed this entire series. No matter how far the series was going to go, it changed in game one. And not with JR. And there was a lot that went on, the referees and everything else. Down 3-0, of course, no team has ever come back, John. Let's talk about just game four. Do the Cavs at least snag one win in this series?
It depends on if they want to go home, if they got their bags packed, if in their minds that they are done, and if LeBron is done. You know, and so they're going to go how LeBron go. If he comes out with the mentality to say, hey, we're not letting them celebrate on our home court. You know, you're going to have to go back to Golden State and celebrate. But it all depends. If Golden State comes out and do what I'm thinking they're going to do, and Steph is normally not going to have another bad game, so it could be over with.
You talk about the mental bags packed. LeBron might have his actual bags packed for another team, which we'll get to in a second.
Okay.
One of his former teammates is on another team. That's Kyrie Irving, of course, with the Celtics. And Kevin Love said last night he couldn't help but wonder what it would be like if Kyrie Irving was on this team. How different do you think it would be?
It would have been a totally different series, obviously. Kyrie is that addict guy that can get you past the bad games that you're going to have or your teammates going to have. Instead of, you know, you have George Hill, which he's a solid player, but he's not Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving going to give you 20-plus points every single night, and he's going to do things out there that's going to put pressure on Golden State. And so, yeah, you know, he's not there. He's not that comfort level that you got to have in order for you to beat a team like Golden State. And so it's tough.
Well, just another guy that can make something out of nothing to alleviate some of that pressure off LeBron.
That's true. And I know LeBron probably won't say it, but he's truly missing him right now. He's truly missing him for this particular series. You know, probably not the last two series, but this particular series. He's missing that guy that he can hand the ball to and say, I can take a break, and you can go out there and control the game, which Kyrie Irving could do that.
Yeah, clearly Kyrie would make a difference, but anyone close to Kyrie's caliber, like Robin's saying, I mean, it's LeBron, Kevin, Love, and spare parts after that, and that's just not enough to win a championship against the Warriors. Let's talk about Warriors. big picture here. Obviously, we're in the middle of a full-fledged dynasty right now if they pull this off. If they pull off a sweep of LeBron and the Cavs, what would this mean history-wise after the tumultuous season they had in Golden State? A bunch of injuries, getting this team finally back together, full-fledged in Game 3 finally with Iguodala joining them. What would it mean for the Warriors here?
It would mean a lot. You know what I mean? Just their legacy as a team to come back and dominate the way they are dominating this series right here. You look at that team, I think Steve Kerr has done a masterful job, and that organization done a masterful job of mixing old with new in their philosophy and the way they play. You watch them on the defensive end, that's old school 90s basketball. They cover like no other. They don't let LeBron sit on that post or whoever on that post. Once they see the mismatch, they come in double, and everybody just scatter. You know what I mean? You do not see that out of other teams.
I'm not taking anything away from the Warriors, and I agree with what you just said, but I always say all rings, aren't created equal. And with Golden State, this is the best team I've ever seen. You were just talking about LeBron saying he needs to do what he's supposed to do, being the king. Do the Warriors get extra credit for doing what they're supposed to do and winning a championship?
Yeah, they're supposed to win a championship. They are a very talented team, and they are well put for this style of basketball in today's brand of basketball. They are well put. They have three-point shooters. They have 3 of them. If Draymond Green was hitting his shot, there's no telling what this series probably be.
And he's a great playmaker in the middle of the floor for them.
Yeah. So they're a great team. Let me just say that. They're a very solid team.
Well, as the series nears an end, we're just getting started with the rumors, of course, and the reports surrounding LeBron's future. In the last day alone, we've heard that LeBron is going to L.A. We'll talk with Boston. He's open to chatting with the Warriors. What do you think, John? As a player, he's in the middle of this series. Does he hear this? And is he paying any attention to the speculation?
You hear it. You're human. You hear people talking about, once the series is over with, if we lose. And I'm saying if they lose, because anything can happen. But, you have to have that in the back of your mind. And he probably know better than anybody what he's going to do. And so, but you can't let that overtake that you still have a task at hand and you have Game 4. But it's in the back of his mind.
Well, this Golden State team, we've talked about them, probably ad nauseum. To me, LeBron now is maybe forced into assembling a super team, like Avengers Assemble, right? I mean, what would you do if you were LeBron?
I'd stay in Cleveland.
Really?
Yeah, he's already proven that he's a champion. He has 3 championships, and if he goes somewhere else, it's just like he's just chasing rings now. You know what I mean? I think it would hurt his legacy. Obviously, him leaving the first time going to Miami, everybody could truly understand that because it wasn't happening in Cleveland. And him coming back, winning a championship, like you said, you would come back and bring a championship to them, and you did that. And so I think, the history and where you stand in history is solidified. So to go somewhere else, and if you happen to win a couple more, it'll take away from his legacy. Me personally, I would think so.
That's our SI NBA analyst, John Starks. Meanwhile, DeAndre Ayton won't be joining a super team, of course, but he will be on an NBA team very soon, most likely in Phoenix. But until then, what is he doing between college in Arizona and the pros? SI spent some time with him. You can watch the full thing on SI TV. But in the meantime, here's a preview.
Babe, I'm about to drive. My car was a little untidy, buddy. Somebody behind me. A little jerk, man. I'm telling you, it's kind of, it's a little jerk. Good old Scottsdale. Play some Gunna, please. This is my first car, so I wanted to be, big on this, and I've been hearing rappers like Quavo, Lil Yachty, they've been rapping about this same car. So I was like, I need to get me a Hellcat, and here we go. Hear the engine on this. I know y'all hear that engine.
Great look right there at the possible #1 overall pick in the NBA draft, DeAndre Ayton. Though, according to Ayton, it's a done deal. After a workout on Wednesday for the Suns, the former Arizona Wildcats big man said he knows he'll be picked #1. Now, the team hasn't told him that. That's according to Ayton, but he's very confident, obviously, in himself. Robin, what do you think? Is he that much of a sure thing to be touting himself like this coming out of a workout with the Suns?
I don't mind him touting himself like this. You know, I think in this day and age and in general, what's the problem if one of these kids believes in themselves and wants to be the #1 pick? That's fine. I personally don't think he's such a sure thing because I am worried about big guys and their ability to move in space in the modern NBA. Now, he can get up and down the floor. There's no doubt about it. He's very skilled. There's no doubt about that either. And maybe that washes away any of those concerns. But I still would have a bit of a concern with the #1 overall pick who you're looking at to be a superstar if there are situations where he's going to be exposed on the floor.
Yeah, I agree. The confidence doesn't bother me. That's how he should be. But I do have concerns. 1 year of college. I don't know. I get the sense he's a little bit immature, which is to be expected of a kid his age. And, you know, you look at the red flag for me, his final college game, round 1 of the NCAA tournament against a mid-major at best in Buffalo, who was a 13 seed. He scores, 14 points? They lose by 21 points. A guy who carries a team on his shoulders as a #1 pick doesn't let that happen. This is a guy who did let that happen, and he admits himself he never even faced a decent big in college. He's going to face a different level of athlete in the NBA. Defensively, it could be an issue. I have some concerns about him.
Meanwhile, according to a report from NBC Sports Philadelphia, the Sixers believe Bryan Colangelo had no knowledge of the burner Twitter accounts, with speculations centering around his wife possibly running them. Do you believe that, and do you think he can stay on as GM if that's the case?
I tell you, if it's true, it's amazing if he didn't know. And if he didn't know, shame on him for letting this happen and this going on behind his back and having no clue about what his wife was doing. I mean, we're married, Robin. We kind of have an idea of what's going on most of the time around the house. I think this is going to come down to, as far as his job is concerned, it's going to come down to the personal information that was leaked. I think that's going to be tough for him to distance himself, whether it was him or his wife. There's legal issues there, and I think the Sixers may want to distance themselves from that, and that may end up costing his job.
Yeah, look, I have no insider information, but I think you really have to make a lot of assumptions in his favor for him to have no knowledge of this. But let's just play the game that he had no knowledge of this. Even if it was his wife, I don't know if he can stay on. I mean, and that's something he'd have to take up with her, but this is not something that's going to go away, and you're talking about the person running your franchise.
Yeah, and you know what? We've seen this before. Someone could agree with the wife and say, we're going to put this on you because the ramifications, there's nothing really attached to it when it comes to you. You take the heat for this and let me try to save my job. I don't know how you get around the speculation.
And people are always talking about, right, you're responsible for who you are associated with and hanging around with. Yeah. He probably has told a player that in the past. Conor McGregor revealed on Instagram, or social media stuff, he had agreed to a UFC fight in May before something came up. Presumably, that something was his bus attack incident in April. I'm not sure this is a great look for McGregor. Do you think it could lead to speculation he did all that to avoid getting back in the octagon?
No. I think this is absurd because getting out of the octagon and getting out of a fight that he had apparently agreed to means taking money off the table. McGregor is about the green. He's about the dollars. But I do know there are conspiracy theorists such as Oliver Stone and maybe Robin Lundberg on this issue. I hear there may be a conspiracy theory.
I don't want you to group me in with some of these conspiracy theorists out there, but yeah, I mean, I think there could be something to it. Look, his last fight was against Floyd Mayweather. That was not an MMA fight. That was something you do when you're out of options and ideas. And after losing that fight, the punishment he took at the end of the fight, and maybe the uncertainty of where to go, I could see his erratic behavior being a symptom of that, and maybe he wasn't so sure of himself getting back into the UFC.
But I guess to intentionally concoct this to get him out of the fight, I don't know, he's due in court. That's real. That's not a concoction or any kind of conspiracy theory. He will be in court in New York later this month. All right, in boxing, Gennady Golovkin has been stripped of his IBF middleweight title after failing to agree to a mandatory title defense. Now, Golovkin wanted to unify the 4 title belts. That plan obviously takes a big hit here. Is this a big deal for boxing? And, you know, is it a problem when there are so many different title belts that can be stripped, moved, lost here?
Well, I think what you just touched on is a big deal. The fact that title belts are meaningless. in boxing. Most of us don't know who's holding what title, what division these guys are even fighting. You know some of the fighters. If you're really into the fight game, you might know and you might care. But boxing's big problem is there's no UFC, right? There's no sanctioning body that makes everything easy to follow. So you can look it up and say, all right, this guy's the middleweight champion. This guy's the #1 contender. Just check the standings. Otherwise, it's the wild, wild west. And I think that's a problem for boxing.
And that's what it's turned into. Boxing is its worst enemy. It's been that way for years. And when you have all these different titles, I understand you got the weight classes, but you've got the IBF, WBC, WBO. First of all, it's tough to follow who actually the champ is. The champ should be the champ. Instead, they look like chumps in this situation, Robin, when they can't unify the belts and have one single champion. And, you know, it's due to a scheduling technicality because he didn't schedule it in time. Very, very bad luck for Gennady and the world of boxing.
No doubt about it. It's thuggish behavior from Conor McGregor. It's unacceptable in every way.
Talk to my Jet fans, friends. They're like, oh, the refs suck.
LeBron had to trade away his entire team to get them elevated.
How do you think Judge and Stanton compared to you and Manny?
It was scary to come forward, and it still is.
The common denominator is still there, and that's Jason Garrett.
Deflategate. Well, Deflategate, of course, was cheating.
In the history of the 1-8 seeds upset here, I'm taking Kareem down.
It is heavy.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
I'm impressed that he didn't run into the cubicle.
Despite no NBA Finals or Stanley Cup game, business was still booming for Delaware casinos on Tuesday when they opened up for sports betting as they pulled in over $300,000 in wagers. Does this show just how palpable the excitement is for legalized sports gambling?
I think it does. On a midweek night with no NBA Finals, you got a ton of baseball to bet on, and they're pulling in $330-something grand in bets. Now that they can bet, people are going to put money. People want action, especially during the week when, hey, they're kind of bored during the middle of the week on things to do. It's not the weekend. So
yeah, I'm starting to get excited about the possibility myself, right? Plus, it's fresh and new. I was looking at him and going, how far is Delaware from here right now? You know, like it's a new, cool thing to do.
And it's going to get closer because it's going to be in New Jersey soon when you get out baseball, golf in the middle of the week, and, of course, the big events.
Meanwhile, in the NFL, Malcolm Jenkins was, of course, asked about the Eagles' disinvitation from the White House at his locker. Well, Jenkins said a lot, but he said it through some signs. Here is what they said, because I think they speak for themselves.
Malcolm, is it? Are you surprised? Are you surprised? There's, you know, this is you guys are kind of embroiled in this controversy with the White House. Lower that phone. Trump.
Yeah, please lower the phone.
Are you not going to say anything today, or just going to use these posters?
Could you hold it up again? We couldn't see it.
What aren't we listening to?
Could you hold it higher, please?
Could you hold it higher so we could see it?
What does it have to do with not going to the White House yesterday?
So you're spreading this message. This is the message you want us to be listening to. We know you're big on social justice and social movement, but how are you going to take steps maybe in this offseason to continue to promote this?